right, the fedora-wearing wonder. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Dave. How about you, man?
I'm doing good. I had a good day today, man.
I'm
I had
good.
a
I'm
really
glad to hear
good day.
it. Sound like you're in a
Yeah.
good mood, having a good time. So,
Well, today was one of the first days in a while I actually didn't fall asleep at my desk in my daytime job. So I was
well, then
pretty happy with that.
I bet your boss is pretty happy too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Probably, considering the last time I fell asleep, he
yeah,
was the one who
yeah,
woke me
yeah.
up.
But you will find that the happier that you are, the more happiness happens around you. It's really quite astounding. I've even experimented with this in that during some of these downturns, you'd have all these like really desperate people calling you for all these different reasons, and I would occasionally just, if I had time, stop and try to strike up a conversation with them, and just really listen to them, be kind. And you would not believe some of the friends I made. I made these two friends over in Jamaica. They were so nice to me after that. It was crazy. And all I did was just like, I swear to you, all I was kind and listened. That was it. That's all I did. It was so crazy. It's really funny how much positivity you can get out of a little positivity.
I agree with you there, my friend. I agree with you there. Hey, everybody seems to be getting a little warmed up and ready for Tuesday. It's Christmas in May for the UFO crowd, at least for some of us. And,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people talking. There's a lot of stories brewing, a lot of rumors and conjecture out there. Will Lou Elizondo be in those hearings? Will he not? Will he be behind the scenes? Or will he be at home drinking a glass of wine, watching the proceedings from Wyoming?
Yeah. I guess my one question is, Dave, is that we could talk about this for hours. So, are you sure you want to hit this first?
Well, no, we'll hit it second after the break because I know that we're going to take some time on that. Let's start off with Coastal Rica. What's this one about?
Well, basically, oh no, that's a lovely mis label.
You
No,
mean
what this
Costa Rica?
is sorry, Costa Rica. This is another one of these really interesting cases because, like I said, I really don't know how to weigh historical data fairly. This is a picture. This is a high quality, high resolution picture, and but it is from 1971. So a little bit about the picture first. So September 4th, 1971, aboard a two-engine Aero Commander F-680 aeroplane, an automated camera captured an image of a flying saucer, which today has yet to be debunked. And and it goes on to talk about the altitude, and we have all this information on it, and it is a beautiful picture. I will agree. However, to me, very much like another picture that I showed just recently, um, I, I guess from the point of view of of spending energy where you're going to get payout for it, right? I just wonder what is the value in really putting a lot of energy into some of these old photos. Like, I would love to think that there was. I would love to think that we could go back and reprocess some old photo and suddenly move the needle in some way. But that's not ever what I've seen. I mean, look what's happened with Patterson Gimlin. The new freaking 4K 100 frames per second video is insane, and no one cares. So I just don't know how valuable this is, but it sucks because it's very interesting and it's a really, really good picture. And the fact that it's sit here since 71 without anyone having any real serious swipes at it, doesn't mean it's definitely anything, but it certainly leans a lot of credibility to the fact that it's not something known.
Well, I want to ask you with this photo, because we do have a lot of people in Radioland who'll be like, what's this photo John talking about? Describe this photo for us, if you don't mind.
So this is an overhead photo, and this looks very, very much like the photo I talked about before. So if it's a repeat, I apologize. But basically, I mean, it's basically an overhead photo of a coastline, and there is basically a flying disc in one frame of it, and it's an incredibly spooky looking flying disc because it's really, really, really normal looking. Like, it almost looks like if you were to go into your kitchen and say, "Hey, I need to make a UFO," and someone said, "Okay, here," and handed you a pan and you threw it and they snapped a picture. Like, that's what you'd expect this to be. It's almost cliche. in in how it looks, right? It's almost a caricature of itself in a way, because it is such the stereotypical, and very much like some other pictures that I've talked about recently. There's lots of interesting debate about camera angles and so forth, but we have a lot of information on this picture. The altitude, the fact that the shots were taken for 20 seconds. We actually have a lot of data on this film, and the thing is that once again, while I find this very interesting, I think I can totally geek out over this. I don't really know if anyone else cares. You know what I mean? I like fundamentally, I don't know, if this is something that would I don't think this is going to change anyone's mind.
No, I don't see it changing anybody's mind. To be honest with you, to me, it looks photoshopped that it's in there.
Yeah.
But of course, we're looking at this, John, with 21st century eyes and not 1971 eyes.
Yep. Totally agreed. Totally agreed. And the thing is that honestly, there are even hypotheses that support the idea that UFOs in the past might have looked corny intentionally. Okay, as crazy as that might sound to some people, but look at it this way: if you subscribe to the hypothesis that there is some core fundamental field or energy source of somewhat that is basically projecting all of these different types of objects, whether it be a UFO or whatever, then essentially what they're projecting is what they think we're expecting to see. So as a result of that, UFOs of the past should look kind of hokey to us, right? In a weird way. I mean, it's bizarre, but if you think about that hypothesis, it actually lends credence to the idea that, older UFOs would actually look older.
Or, what I find a little bit intriguing about that is how we've gone in stages with UFOs, from flying discs to what we're seeing now, which are cube shape, pyramid shape, triangles. You don't hear a lot of the Tic Tacs.
I know, no Doritos, no anything.
I know.
But the thing is that that's, you're not at the beginning, right? In that, you go back and and if any of you haven't read this yet, you should feel very bad about yourselves. John Keel's books, right? He tells you the stories in the 1800s, airships, right? There's a case of something flying over London that not only looked like a flying ship, like something out of freaking Peter Pan, but the anchor, quote unquote, that was hanging from the ship, because a ship has to have an anchor, even if it's a flying ship, caught on someone's chimney and damaged the chimney.
Right.
Blah, blah. What is that?
And for centuries, people were seeing, John, those ships that had oars. Some of them even had reports of oars sticking out of the side that were moving as it was flying.
I can almost promise you that there were Vikings that saw rowing. And the thing that's so frustrating about this is that if you've been studying this, if you've been taking as desperate of a scientific approach to studying this as you possibly can, you start getting to some very difficult hypotheses. But the problem is that none of it means that anything isn't real. And none of it means that anything is real. And that's what's so frustrating about it, is that everyone wants this definitive answer. But the truth of the matter is that, if, let's say, for example, that all just UFOs are projected from an orb, right? Now, they're projected from something. Now, are they projected from us? Well, where did we see it from? So my point is that are all projections a clone of an original? Or are any projections original themselves?
Well, John, we're going to continue on with the Unbiased UFO Report. Thank you for your analysis on that. And we'll talk to you right after the break here, as we'll get into the hearings. People are getting geared up for UFO talk next week. All right, buddy, we're clear.
Good.
That was a good start, man. Solid start.
It's trippy.
You're trippy.
You know, one thing that I thought might happen, but I wasn't confident enough to predict, is that right before like grand focal points happen, where people think that there's going to be grand decisions made, there'll be certain groups right before it that will get so nervous and so anxious that they can't handle it anymore. And they'll make a decision because they want to preempt the event. They want to be the ones that said right before the event, we knew what we were doing, we knew the answers. And historically, this strategy almost never pays out. I mean, almost never. The one exception is if you're Microsoft, and then you can do it afterwards, and you throw so much money at it, it doesn't matter. So, 1 second. What's up, love? What's up? What do you need? Oh, no, okay. Yeah. You need something? What do you need? What do you need? Me? I don't understand. What do you need? I know I'm on the radio right now. I'm trying to find out what you need. Oh, you want me to pause it? I'm sorry. I apologize. Here, hold on a second. It's like trying to figure out why she wasn't talking. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Where'd your voice go?
She's so cute.
Didn't want to speak until I muted it.
My son's like that too. That's
Cracks
awesome.
me up.
Can she hear me?
No, I got a headphone in.
Oh.
No, I didn't make it to Legoland. It was someone else was going to Legoland.
Grant Tavius.
Yeah, Grant Tavius. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been yet myself.
I've never been there either.
I have to admit, I'm a little afraid to go.
Why? Addiction?
I'm a little afraid I won't leave.
Yeah. I think we're all like that.
I used to spend like I would literally like 3 o'clock getting home until midnight, and then the next day do the same thing on like one Lego project for like days on days and days on end. I even had a whole QA process for ships. They had to be able to sustain falls from certain heights over certain materials with certain hardnesses.
Really?
Mm-hmm. What's good is a Lego ship if it falls apart, right?
True.
So over grass, it has to be able to land over certain heights, and over you got to be reasonable.
Did you ever glue yours?
Oh God, no! It's criminal.
I know people who did that.
Look, I'm going to say something that's very judgmental. It's not fair, but I'm going to say this: people that glue their Legos are afraid of their own imaginations.
Very true.
And it's the last thing in the world you should be afraid of. If anything is there for you, it's your imagination.
Well, you ready to drop the gloves here on this portion?
Yeah, but you didn't want to talk about basically everyone calling their bets, like on this whole like Stephen Greenstreet thing. I mean, basically you have a bunch of people calling their bets 5 days early, hoping to cash in, and it's kind of entertaining, don't you think?
Well, let's get to it. It's all part and parcel.
That's true. It is. You're right on that one.
Big thank you to Smithy, D. Cohen, Shelly, Cat Chaser, and Angel for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support of SOR. And we're going to get going here in 10 seconds. Rounded third. We're headed for home on Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the Unbiased UFO Report. The fedora-wearing Jon Hudson is here with us. And John, we are just hours away from the UFO report coming on in, and there's a lot of speculation through the weekend and previous week that what we're going to get through all of this. What do you think's going to go on? And what's the atmosphere like in UFO Twitter land?
Well, what's kind of surprising is the number of stories that are actually breaking. Like, I was kind of expecting the normal situation where there's an absolute vacuum of information for the 72 to whatever hours beforehand, and in that period of time people panic and start making stuff up out of nowhere and convincing people of it. It's weird. What happened this time, which is different, is that you've seen a bunch of stories breaking. And so for example, one of them is that essentially Christopher Mellon, who most of you are aware of, and if not, he served with distinction in the U.S. government and was part of TTSA, and he basically wrote this fantastic article where he basically lays out exactly what sort of questions that he wants asked at the hearing. And he listed as a draft, and he encourages input, and I mean, there's nothing in it that that jumps out as me as well. That's not true. I was a little surprised at his aggression toward the U.S. Air Force. Some of the language toward the U.S. Air Force was a bit more terse than I would expect. But if Christopher Mellon is talking like that, it means he's really, really mad, because that guy is in massive control of his emotions. I mean, it's fantastic. But the thing is that, like we were talking about before, these become trigger points for all these sort of events. So we have supportive things coming out like that. We also have a lot of people just writing about the briefings that wouldn't necessarily be writing about the topic. Like, for example, Bloomberg. Like, I wouldn't normally expect Bloomberg to be running an article about UFOs, but they are running an article about UFOs in the political section, talking about the fact that the chair of the first UFO hearing since 1960 was quoted as saying, "Someone has to do it."
Someone
has to do it. Got to love that motivation, right?
I think Chris Mellon's article couldn't have come out at a better time. I really do like the idea that he is out there and he continues to push. for so many months, it seems like Mellon went into the dark and everything was on Luis Elizondo's shoulders. So it's nice to see Mellon kind of, getting ready for the game, throwing a few body checks and starting to stir it up a little bit before the big event.
Yeah. And the thing is that, that's the other problem, is that you're going to have a certain number of, look, the problem is that one of the things you have to do is try to separate the organic actions from the structured actions, right? Meaning that is someone taking advantage of a process and trying to exaggerate something, or are they actually trying to get something to happen completely artificially, versus a more organic thing? Like, for example, Bloomberg writing about the fact that there is going to be hearings in their political section, that caught me a little bit off guard. But when you think about it, kind of makes sense, right? The thing that Chris Mellon wrote, that to me was a little more surprising, but that was fantastic in that essentially the truth of the matter is that he could have provided almost as much value by writing a bad document, because essentially by putting a document out there with a good framework, even if it's not properly fleshed out the way you think it would, it's amazing how that encourages people to jump in and start filling out proper information. It's actually a really good tool to use for people. So, but the challenge is yes, you could absolutely have people that are either have been planning for a long time to somehow take advantage of this in some way, or there are people that are trying to move other legislation or move other things that now see this as a new pawn in their little game. That's a problem. Is that we have now jumped into like one of the most shark infested bodies of water that currently exist on Earth, and there are a lot of influences there that most of us are not aware of. And so the point is that there is, if you care about the shades of gray, okay, then there is a plethora of information for you to absorb, and there is more than that. There is an absolute avalanche of data for you to chew on. If you do not like shades of gray, if you like black and white, if you like Boolean, if you like definite answers, if you like finite decisions, then unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get much happiness out of the next couple of days that you've gotten any over the last couple of days, and that you're really likely to get any in the near future. Because while this has been encouraging a lot of people to come out, like, for example, we do know the person who is heading up the briefing, the hearing. We do know who, I'm not quite sure if I can say their names yet, so I'm refraining from. But we know two of the people that will be actually presenting at the hearing. The names and pictures of those have leaked out to certain media outlets. So we're actually getting a fair amount of information where, I think there's a really good chance that by Tuesday morning, we're already all going to have a pretty good idea as to who's going to be there, who's going to be talking, who's going to be asking questions, and we might even have some idea as to what kind of questions they're going to ask, right? And let's face it, that's the other thing, is that these hearings weren't just invented for UFOs, right? I mean, this whole process is incredibly built into Congress, and it is something that happens automatically. And so it is something that's going to happen however we feel about it, right? I mean, Congress is going to do its thing no matter what we do, right? So it just, like I said, it's going to get extremely frustrating, as if it's not already, for anyone that wants anything like, super solid. However, if you enjoy the nuance, I mean, like you said, Chris Mellon's article is fantastic. I mean, he brings up a lot of really interesting points. I mean, you could use his document. Forget it as a questionnaire for a hearing. You could use it as a fantastic skeleton for a one hell of a panel, right? I mean, there's some really good information in there, right, and some really thoughtful topics and so forth. So I think that if essentially, if people use this as a catalyst, if people use this as a motivational tool, if people use this as a scheduling convenience of, well, if I was going to release this information in the next 3 weeks, I might as well release it, that week, because all this other stuff like that, that kind of stuff happens. That more the better. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't. I guess my challenge is that, to me, if you want data that's going to really move the needle, right, then you have to first ask not what data is available. You have to first ask what data is required, right? And you essentially have to go to people and ask them, like, what is your threshold? What is your threshold, right? And so you start doing this, and you start realizing that, hey, there is nothing. There is no data set. There is no film. There is no anything that is going to convince 90% of the people of anything, right? You might, if you get lucky, get 45% or something like that, right? And so I think that's what makes it very infuriating for people. But if you like the nuance of it, boy, man, you can eat and eat and eat and eat. It's fantastic.
Well, let's face it here. I mean, if the names have leaked out there, who's going to be speaking? I'm going to put some pressure on you here. Who are those names?
See, Dave, I figured that you would do that, so I intentionally didn't include them in my notes. But I do have it'll be science. Because I don't think we mentioned this before. We did find out it'll be Science and Intelligence Officer Sean Kirkpatrick, PhD, who's been picked to head the new
AOIMSG.
AOIMSG. I think of food. It's very hard for me. And I'm usually really good with acronyms too. I mean, I come from a world that did PCMCIA, right? So, please.
Gonna get you to move your microphone up a bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But basically, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, U.S. Space Command, will be basically heading up this organization. So, and like I said before, we did find out from Bloomberg today that where's the guy's name? Representative Andre Carson, an Indiana Democrat, will essentially be, heading up the panel on Tuesday. So we are slowly. And so I guess my point is that, like, one of the weird things about this topic is that when it starts broaching into other areas, what you don't know is are all the normal systems that exist in that world going to trigger, or is there something weird about us, right? They're gonna choke on it, and the right systems are not going to trigger, right? And that's one thing you just don't know. And so, if essentially all the right things trigger for a hearing, things that should trigger independent of what kind of hearing it is, then this is the kind of information we should be getting, and we actually should get a lot more, right? We should get a lot more. But I guess my point is that, if we have a problem where, like, you have a bunch of people that are expecting an incredible, nail down, I mean, this is part of the problem we're having right now that I mentioned briefly before, is that when you starting to get close to a deadline like this, you're going to have all these people that are going to start hedging their bets, and they're going to start, making preemptive decisions, right? And so you have people like, Stephen Greenstreet and so forth doing these videos where they're basically deciding, on the data they have, hey, I'm going to determine that this is false, or this is true, or this is BS, or this is not BS. And they're, essentially calling their bets now. And that's one of the things that is people get driven to do as a result of all of the, all the emotion and anxiety wrapped around this Tuesday event.
Well, it's going to be very interesting, John, to see how this all plays out, because for many of us, we're all wondering what the answer is going to be. What is success in the eyes of Chris Mellon or the eyes of others who you've talked to for Tuesday?
Yeah, to me, like this is something that honestly I've been struggling with myself, in that I no longer have a clear vision of what the goal is, right? Because of the fact that, you know, this is seeming to become so personal for people. And there doesn't seem to be these grand, you know, global acknowledgments or grand global realizations. And so, you know, for me, what I would want to see is I would want to see something equivalent to a true up, right? What I would want to see is I would want to see that at the end of the panel, there's a minimum number of things that they all agree on moving forward, and those can be very minimal. Those can be, you know, there is a, you know, an outbound intelligence, right? We don't know the source of the intelligence. We don't believe the source of the intelligence is our adversaries, right? I mean, you know, it might be something that simple. It might be something more dramatic, but we need to get everyone to. We need a foundation. We need a base floor to start with, right? And right now, it's one of the reasons why, you know, in the very language of the hearing is talking about the stigma having to be removed. I mean, they're basically having a panel about, you know, just removing the stigma to have a panel when you really look at it.
Well, I think success would be, and I think I'm asking too much here, John. Success would be, at a minimum, that they officially confirm that any of these craft that are being seen in military air bases or around nuclear facilities, because I don't think we're going to get over major cities to quell the public. I think it would be a huge win for the UFO community if they came out and said, we 100% know these craft are not from Earth. I think that's where it starts.
The problem, Dave, is you can't know that. Like, you can't know that for sure. You can be pretty sure, but you can't. All you can. It's incredibly hard to prove something like that. I mean, of anything.
I know
anything. Like, let it be anything, right? I mean, it's. I think the best chance we have of that happening is what Gary Nolan's doing. It's going to be the isotopic ratios. I think that's going to be the only way to prove that it's off-world.
We are going to see, my friend. We are going to see a great unbiased UFO report from the fedora-wearing Jon Hudson. Well, thank you, John, and I know you'll be back to talk more about this very, very soon. We'll talk to you then, buddy.